thank you for joining us today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jennifer Jeffries, the PR Manager for Intel in Australia and New Zealand. I'm really excited to have you here to celebrate our 10th Gen launch with us. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Today you'll be hearing from Santosh Vishwanathan. He is our APJ Territory Managing Director, and the APJ Territory includes Australia and New Zealand. And supporting Santosh will be Dino on demos.
Hello, good evening. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. And I really want to thank all the folks who actually flew in from outside of Sydney, as well as our friends from New Zealand who's here. So thank you so much for taking the time. Now, our conversation today is about the 10-gen Intel core processors that we launched. But before we actually get into that conversation, what I thought would be really useful is for us to really have a little bit of conversation about the Intel's journey over the last few years. So I want to spend some time at the beginning really articulating on where our journey is, what our ambitions are, and then how have we really gone and built on the journey, on the path that we are in today. Now, we laid this simple strategy out that you see on these slides, which is our ambitions are really how do we transform ourselves from what we call as a PC-centric company to being a data-centric company, and then finally being a key player that really powers the digital world. So that's the ambitions that we laid out, and it looks really simple on the slide, but it's been a huge multi-year journey for us, because we have spent in the last few years alone over $40 million really acquiring companies and skills that really helps us realize this vision and this journey. Now, the key to that journey is just the exponential growth of data that we've seen over the last few years. And it's just stunning when you go look at it, because the amount of data that we're generating just in the recent past has been massive. Now, by the end of 2020, we are touching close to 40 zettabytes of data, right? And for me, zettabyte is like a huge, massive number, and I want to simplify it, and I probably understand gigabytes better, right? So it's about 40 trillion gigabytes of data just by 2020 that we're going to start seeing. Now, the key part for that data, which just amazes me, is that over half of this data is being generated in the last 2 years, right? And less than 2% of that data is being analyzed. Right? So it's really shocking to see huge amount of data, small amount of data that really gets analyzed, and that is a huge opportunity for the industry. This year alone, IDC predicts that the market for this data is about $189 billion, right? Just in this year alone, right? So it's a huge, huge opportunity that we see for the industry. Now, with that as the opportunity, we see as a company, there are three key areas that we can play a huge role in. The first one is how do we process that data, right? How do we ensure that we are the company that really goes back and builds the processing engine behind the data? The second element is how do we go back and store that data? And the last one is how do we move that data? In each of these markets, you can see the growth rates mentioned here. It's really exponential that we see from now to the near future. Now, if some of you I know have been to was at Seoul recently, last week, where we made some huge announcements on the store side as well as on the move side of it. And what we are focused here is at the process side of it, which we'll cover a little more. Now, based on these opportunities, which is process, store, and move, we built this strategy that we have listed out on a page here, right? We truly want to be a company that builds the world's best semiconductors, right? That's our DNA, that's what we've done for 5 decades. And we want to really go do that capability in the data-centric world. We want to go back and lead big seismic changes as we see, which is AI, 5G, and autonomous opportunities that I think in our lifetime is going to be big shifts from an industry perspective. And let me give you, one small story that I had, which is on AI. And I know that there's a lot of interest in AI, and you'll start seeing about how the 10 Gen also embraces the AI element. But the key story about AI that I want to leave you with is that the innovation on AI, what excites me the most is that it's going to be across multiple markets and it's going to be local, right? It is going to be like the internet. It basically is going to be something that, what can people do with that technology to go and solve problems? And that's going to be the key element of AI. And most recently, I met this company in my travels, and this company was called Chronic Care. And what really excited me about them is, they gave me this amazing stat that said that every 30 seconds in the world, somebody is getting an amputation done, right? And I'm like, that data just shocked me because it's like 30 seconds, somebody's losing an arm or a leg or part of their body because of a chronic injury that just wasn't diagnosed quickly or acted upon quickly. And what this company really went and did was they built this handheld scanner that uses RealSense, a spatial scanner that connects back to an AI engine, right, that really works back on 15 years of chronic wound data and helps the medical personnel at the emergency to really scan the wound and get the diagnosis done in 30 seconds, right? Now the key is that normal process in hospitals was that you've got to get a specialist, they would go examine the wound, and that process took hours sometimes to get done, right? Therefore delaying the emergency care that needs to be done. Now again, what these stories tell you is that there are so many opportunities and so many issues that we can go solve by tools. And truly Intel wants to be that end-to-end platform player to go back and enable those. And that's where some of our acquisitions, some of our changes in the way we're building our architectures and elements around that is really going to go help and build this journey. Now the last two pieces there is internal, but extremely important. The last part is about how do we ensure that we have the same operational excellence that we've had over 5 decades, consistently delivering new products, consistently having the cadence of innovating. How do we build that in the data-centric world, right? So that's the part. And the last and the most important part is also about how do we ensure that we have the best-in-class talent that can go and enable all of these things to happen, right? So in a simple word, this is what our strategy is on a page. Now, if we go back and realize this strategy, I think our opportunity is going to be huge, right? And you can see what I've listed on this page. It's a little complex, but what this really shows you is that from a 50-odd billion market opportunity that Intel used to look at, today we see like roughly a $300 billion market opportunity that we can go and clear. Now, it's $300 billion market opportunity for us, but it's multi-trillion dollar opportunity for the industry, right? That's what keeps us really excited. Now, at the end of it, you look at the PC as well, and we truly think that there's lots of room for innovation, even in that PC world and in the PC world, right? And the key about PC is I've really spoken about the data-centric world, but when I step back and think about the PC, I truly think that it's the human edge in this data-centric world. I mean, when you think back, none of this data-centric world
will be built if you didn't have that PC, because the PC is a true element that creates all the algorithms, all the engines, all the thinking in this world. And when I look at Asia, that growth is really coming back because of just the productivity element of the PC as well as the young population that we have, right? So I can see the growth coming back, and customers and users are basically demanding higher levels of performance, more innovation that can really go back and fuel this device. Now, when I look at the innovation journey that Intel's had, and I've been 15 years with Intel, you know, this is my 6th country that I've lived in my 15 years. So I've traveled a lot around the world, done multiple amount of roles, and I've seen these big transitions happen across the country. We've reimagined and re-looked at what this device can be. And I remember my journey when it started with Centrino, right? That was the first time when we got the Wi-Fi in PCs, and you know, you remember the days that we had to still connect and dial. But this completely changed the way how these devices connected at that point. Ultrabook was the most recent one, where today the notebook being thin and light is like a de facto standard for the industry, right? And today we have the opportunity where we're trying to reimagine this category again by using Project Athena. Now, some of you attended this call in the morning that we had organized with one of the key researchers on Project Athena, Melissa Gray. And for those who missed it, we will share the recording as well. And it was really fascinating to hear her speak about the research. And the foundation of that research, and that was new learning for me as well, that the foundation of the research was actually from Australia. Right? When she worked in the university here before her career in Intel, she had done a lot of research on user groups, and that became the foundational study of Project Athena that she now goes and runs. And what we went, and when we went and pulsed the users, there were 3 key elements that really came out. People really wanted a device that they can focus on. Second, they wanted a device that was always ready. And third, and the most important part, is that they wanted a device that will adapt to their different environments and the changing needs, right? So those were the 3 simplistic principles that Project Athena was built on. Now what I thought was, instead of me talking more about these points, let me just try and run a quick video that really shows you on what's possible with Project Athena. This gives you a glimpse of what's actually possible, but this truly goes back and reimagines that the laptop and the PC yet again. Now the most important part about this is, like Centrino, like Ultrabook, we can't do this transition alone. It needs the whole industry to come together. And we're truly pulling in the different companies together on this journey. There's over 100 companies that have signed up on Project Athena. And there's specifications across 27 different parameters that is being listed for Project Athena to qualify on the Athena 1.0 specs, as we call it. Right? Now, we also want to encourage the innovation. So we have 3 open labs across the world. So we have it in Taiwan, we have it in
in Beijing, as well as we have one in Folsom in California, where we have technical people, as well as it's a lab where industry can come in and co-innovate, right? So this is not something that we want to do together, but this is something that we truly want the partners to come in and co-innovate with us. The first steps of this innovation starts with our 10-gen platform that we spoke about, right? Now there are two key products that we announced most recently. The first one is called as the Ice Lake, right? And to simplify and give you the three key benefits of Ice Lake is about, the first one is about intelligent performance, right? The keyword, the word intelligent is important because we're trying to go bring in factors that can really ensure that your device is ready when you are, right? And be aware where you are and then ensure that you have the right environment when you're trying to go work on. So that's the first step, which is intelligent performance. The second one, which I'm excited about, is just the graphics elements of it. It's a huge gen-on-gen improvement on graphics. And the last one is about connectivity, right? It's about taking that Centrino level connectivity that we have really evolved over the years to just the next level in which you can really see the difference. Now, instead of me going through these features, I thought I'll bring on Dino, and Dino does not need any introduction here. So he is our account manager based out of Sydney, but he's also a tech enthusiast, and I thought it would be awesome to have Dino on stage with us.
Thanks, Andrew. I do need an introduction. I do know some of you, but I'm sure most of you don't know me. My background is in gaming and overclocking. I used to use liquid nitrogen regularly to recool records and things like that. So I think that's what the samples was referring to. Very specific area of specialization. This is a little bit different, but it is exciting to go through that.
Yeah, and I want to start off by asking you that, hey, when you looked at 10-gen, and I know you've been playing around with it for a while now, what are the elements that really excited you about it?
Yeah, look, I've been lucky to be able to test a few devices, and you know, there was a lot I could probably go over, but I'll just focus on three.
Sure.
So you mentioned intelligent performance. So there are AI-based workloads now inside mobile client CPUs, which will change the way we use our devices. It's actually really cool, and I'll show you a demo about that. Iris Plus graphics is another one. Now, I'm a CSGO tragic. I've got over 2,000 hours in the game. I don't like to admit it, but I am reasonable at it. Not as good as Alex, who probably smashed me in the game, but yeah, I'm okay. Zuka, he's a good gamer. Alex Walker. I've played Counter-Strike at 1080p. I normally don't play at 1080p, but our slides show 1080p medium settings. I don't know, I think it was showing about 70 frames. It was averaging between 70 and 90 frames. In fact, we had a laptop in the demo area, so when we go across to the other room, we can show you a device that does that. But it's actually pretty impressive. So. And the last one, Wi-Fi 6. I mean, we are incorporating it now into silicon. Really good technology, same as Thunderbolt 3. I mean, we've got some really good connectivity to take us into the new age.
Awesome. Now, instead of us talking about it, is there a way that you can show these in action?
Yeah, let's do that. So I'll show an AI workload demo based on a Gaussian neural accelerator. So essentially, what that is, it's an accelerator that's built into the CPU that focuses on very specific workload. In this case, it's noise suppression. So essentially, this software is not new. It's called CRISP.
Yep.
It's been around before 10th gen. That's not why it's special. What's special about it is that now the accelerator will do this job 2 times as fast and at the 10th of the power. So if you've got a laptop that has a, I don't know, 10 watt CPU, 2 watts would be used to process this in a regular, say 8th and 9th gen CPU, but with 10th gen, 0.2 watts. So you're using very little power. And this is where the Project Athena ties into the whole process. So what I'll do is I'll just play this, well, the best part is some of you guys are probably thinking you just buy a headset that does.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Well, this also eliminates noise from the other source as well.
Okay.
Headset can't do that. So I'll actually play a video. So this will work on the video itself and we'll suppress noise. So I'll show you what that looks like. Hopefully we've got the, yep.
I've just installed it on the 10-gen laptop, but I haven't tried it out.
Okay. Well,
There's
so I'm going to now switch on the noise suppression accelerator, and we'll keep playing this video. And during that video, I'll switch it back off so you can hear the difference again.
So, how do I sound now? Wow, that's much clearer. How does it do that?
Well, it actually uses the Intel Athena neural accelerator along with drift neural network to remove the background noise. And Intel DNA actually uses a lower power fabric from the CPU, so you can actually stay mobile longer.
That's really cool. This will totally help me focus and be more productive.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm glad I caught you at the right time, but I've got to run, get to my meeting, but we'll talk to you soon.
This was the world's shortest meeting ever, I think, but it gives you a good idea of what this does, right? And look, this is just the start. I mean, we've also got DL Boost accelerator as well in CPU, so some really amazing deep learning features already inside of Power Director. So a lot of software developers, Intel works with a lot of software developers to enable these groundbreaking innovations, to be able to get the software guys to create the hooks that will eventually improve, usage of these laptops and everything like that. And you'd be traveling quite a lot, and I'm sure you'd take quite a few meetings, right, in a noisy cafe or whatnot.
Yeah, I travel every week, and this would be an absolutely great feature for me. And you're right, I've seen applications on the phones that can do that probably, and sometimes on the laptop, but it drains the battery like crazy. So I'm glad that this does this. The second point that you mentioned is really important, because the DL Boost is enabled at the hardware level, which means it really opens up avenues for people to go back and innovate on it, right? And we have done a similar thing in the IoT area. If you go look at OpenVINO and some of our stacks, will be the example I gave you about wound and chronic care. That exactly is the innovation that's probably coming on the laptop with these features, right? So
absolutely.
I'm
And in
really-
servers too.
yeah.
So in servers we've got DL Boost as well, in server CPU, Xeon CPU. So like you said, processing data at a large scale, you need specific accelerators that will really be able to do that process much more efficiently. So.
awesome. Now let's talk about your passion topic.
Yes.
Right.
So
So what can we do with graphics and gaming?
I'll be honest with you guys, I did have Counter-Strike. I wanted to show you a bit of Counter-Strike play, but we've had some challenges with getting everything working. I do have another interesting demo from, it's called Rens. It's basically a photorealistic map or game created by an environmental 3D artist. And this is, I'll just go forward a little bit. Graphics on Intel software now is literally twice the performance it was in the previous generation.
Is that a video or?
No, it's real. So you can. Sorry, I've just gone into another option, but I can show a little bit of. This is still in-game rendering real time. Really, this is 1080p, 30 frames rendering real time. Counter-Strike, like I said, I mean, I was blown away. In fact, most professional Counter-Strike players do not play medium settings, and they don't play 1080p. They'll play lower resolution, stretched. So I played this the way I normally played it. I played it at about 120 frames per second. That is insane for a casual gaming laptop that has an all-day battery life. So this isn't going to replace a gaming PC, but what it will do is or give you the ability to occasionally game if you're on the go and wanted to do that.
Awesome. Now, since you've seen gaming in your passion topic, now what about connectivity? We mentioned that it's a big jump that we have.
Mm-hmm.
How is connectivity improving with Wi-Fi 6 and Thunderbolt 3?
Yeah, look, and that's actually the other thing that I wanted to kind of highlight with these new laptops, right? So the laptops themselves are ultra slim to life. I mean, we've got Lenovo and HP laptops and Dell laptops that have 20-hour battery life. That's pretty crazy, right? They have Thunderbolt 3. You can use Thunderbolt 3 to connect to an external graphics enclosure if you wanted to. Use that extra bandwidth that Thunderbolt 3 now provides. You can have a full gaming PC. What you also get is Wi-Fi 6. Wi-Fi 6 is now built into the silicon, and you essentially now get up to 3 times the performance of previous .11 AC graphics. But what I liked more is I read a little bit into the way Wi-Fi 6 worked, and the way packets are distributed on Wi-Fi 6 network is a little different. So basically the latency reduces up to about 75%, which is really phenomenal. And the battery life will also be better on devices because there's a lot less pinging and the traffic is much more optimized. And to top it all off, we also have a WPA3 standard now. Just want to show, we can switch to the screen. So we're transferring about 1.4, 1.5. Switch back, please. So 1.5 gigabits per second.
And normally we're at 150 and 200.
Most of the time you're at 200 megabits. Yeah. You're not hitting 1.5 gigabits per second on a Wi-Fi network. Yeah.
Wow, that's totally awesome. It just changes performance to a whole new level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ed, thank you so much for being on stage. And it's really great that we could see this. And there's a lot more demos that we have in the showcase area as well. So you can really see that. So with that, I just wanted to bring this home. There are 3 key elements that Dino tried and covered, which was, about AI, about graphics, and about connectivity. That truly changes the game on performance, right? So it really brings the next level of performance on these devices. And when I think about performance, and I'm sure most of you have the same, there's one thing that we closely relate to performance, which is sports, right? And I wanted to share this with you that the ultimate arena for performance is the Olympics. And Intel is a proud sponsor and a proud partner of the Olympic Games. And our intent there is to really play a key role in really accelerating multiple verticals of technology at the Olympics on and off the stage there. And processor is one of those key segments that we are connected as well with the Olympics. Now, I thought it would be amazing that if we can actually get an end user on stage who represents the spirit of the Olympics and also values performance, right? So, with further ado, I would really like to invite Cameron McAvoy on stage. Cameron, please. Welcome. Great to see you. And it's truly a pleasure as well as a huge honor. Not every day do you get to share the stage with a 2-time Olympian on stage, right? So thank you so much for taking the time and thank you for being there with us.
All right, thanks, Adam.
Yeah, I want to start off by, just talking about your journey, right? I mean, you were 17 when you first qualified. And then after London, I've been on the Australian Dolphins team ever since. I went to Rio in 2016, and looking forward into the future, I am currently in the Olympic season now, training for Tokyo next year. Our Olympic trials or Olympic qualifications are in June next year, so that's the next stepping stone for me. And then after that, I'm fortunate enough to be in the events in swimming, the sprint freestyle events, where you're granted a little bit more longevity in the sport. So the Olympic champion in the 50 freestyle was 36 years old in Rio, and I'm 25 at the moment, so hopefully I've got quite a bit of time left in the sport. Yeah, I mean, it's just awesome. I'm going to take this recording and I'm going to play it to my son who's 9 years old. He's just started swimming and he's passionate about it, and he was very excited that I'm actually sharing a stage with you. So thanks for that. Now, I'm sure the audience is really wondering that, what does the processor have to do with your journey, and how is technology connected to swimming?
So, with me, especially as I'm getting older and moving through the sport, and as technology is moving along, I worked very closely, myself and my coach and my closest support network worked very closely with sports scientists and in particular biomechanists. And for me, the biggest parts from where we can get immediate improvement in my swimming is, I guess, immediate feedback from training and from competition. So at the moment, I would say the best type of feedback that I can get is the biomechanist uses software where we will film myself do repetitions in training, or it would be at a competition doing a race, and they will use this race footage or training footage, run it through the software, and that would spit out a couple of pages of data analysis, pretty much right down to anything we want to really analyse from the swim, in terms of the skill times from the dive and the turn, how many strokes I do, how many times I breathe, strokes per minute, and then I can compare this to my past performances. I can compare it to current competitors and kind of see where I can improve upon, where I've kind of gone backwards as well as I go out through the season, and where I've gone forward, and I can pretty much do as much as I want. So the best thing about this is that, say we're at an Olympic Games and I do the 100 freestyle heat and I've got the final that night. I'll swim, and then the biomechanist can put the video footage into the software, spit out the race analysis of my heat, and basically tell me where I've improved upon for that swim based on my past best performances, where I can improve for the final that night, and then also I can do the same thing for my competitors, so that if I know who I'm next to in the final in terms of the two lanes next to me, who I'll be seeing on both laps when I breathe, so I can be more aware of their race strategy, what they're doing, and I kind of won't be shocked if someone decides to go as fast as they can out in the first lap and I'm a body length behind, but that's their race plan and they might die out in the last 50 or whatever it may be. But also the problem with this is that at an Olympic Games or any sporting competition, swimming competition, there could be 20 Australians competing in one heat session at a time. So usually we'll do the heat and then warm down. We'll have to get back, have our nutrition, go have a nap. Doesn't sound very hard life, but yeah, go have a nap, prepare for the final, and do everything to kind of get our performance up for the final. And we'll come into the pool that night, but we won't immediately get our analysis back because the biomechanist has to run through 20 or so different people's data and video footage and whatnot. So the biggest improvement in this area is that instead of having to wait until I roll into the venue for the final or even after the final, I can immediately get the data back straight after the heat, not only when I've got all day to kind of mull over it and figure out what I want to do in the final, but also when the heat swim is more immediately in my short-term memory, and I can more vividly remember everything that I've done there. So yeah, that would be definitely one of the biggest improvement factors for us being able to move forward and more immediately in the present moment improve for a competition or in training as well.
Yeah, and I mean, you captured a lot of points here. I think the important one is you want to get that feedback quickly, you want the processing to be quick, and then you want to go and act on it, because the faster you get, the better it is for you.
Yeah.
And it's closer to being real time. Now, we shared a 10-gen processor with you a few weeks ago, and you've tried to go play around with it. So how is your experience being as the actual user? Did you see a big shift from what you used in the past?
Yeah, so the best way I can put forward, I guess, the shift is I had a competition, and usually when a competition runs, you'll walk out behind the blocks, you'll do your swim, finish, and then you have to get out and walk through a media zone, swim, finish, and then you have to get out and walk through a media zone, which would be 5 minutes or so, and then you get to the warm down pool, you can finally see your coach, and then your coach can give you the data of what he got visually from his own eyes and stopwatches, and then you warm down, go home, and then come back for the final or whatever it may be. And usually we always have a kind of like a what do you call it, like a server or something where everyone's race footage is uploaded to the server, and then all the coaches have access to it so that you can re-watch your race, learn what you want to learn from it, or whatever it may be. And usually, say if we swim in the heat in the morning, we won't get to watch it until we come in for the final at night or until the next day, especially if you're on one of the until the next day, especially if you're on one of the larger teams when you've got 20 plus people swimming. And one of the biggest things is that now, by the time I get back from the media zone walk 5 minutes later, my coach he'll have his piece of paper program with his whatever he's written down, because my coach is 66 now, so he's pretty old school. But on the other hand, he's got the race video ready for me to watch as well. And the biggest improvement with that, and the thing I like about that is, again, I've just gone the race, I know exactly what happened, and I can get out and re-watch it and get a third person perspective of what just unfolded in front of me, and I can kind of match that to how I perceived it, pick up things that I didn't perceive as well, and more immediately be able to change it for my next swim.
Yeah, I mean, with 1.5 Gbps that we saw there, you're going to get the video as soon as you cross that media.
Even before the media zone, I'd probably get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also heard that you have a lot of downtime that you like watching entertainment on the device as well.
Well, with the so when we're in a big competition environment too, and especially on our staging camp leading into a competition where we're in what we call taper, so we're dropping off the amount of workload we do, we're freshening up, but also say for Tokyo next year, we'll be in a city 2-hour train ride north from Tokyo in Nagaoka. And basically we'll have 2 weeks there where we'll have, I'll be training most days twice a day, some days once a day. And outside of that, we've got pretty much the rest of the day to fill in with whatever we do. And you don't really want to be outside walking around the city, checking it out, and I guess undoing the taper that you're meant to be doing to freshen up for the competition. So yeah, a lot of the team get together, we like get out a few land competitions, or in terms of just general entertainment, just watch Netflix or any streaming service or whatever that may be. But it's definitely going to help in terms of that avenue, and especially in terms of I've got to remember the statistics. It was twice as fast with graphics on normal notebooks, not gaming notebooks. Yeah. And in terms of portability, and we're going to be away overseas and stuff like that, that would tremendously help with our lands anyway. So.
Okay, awesome. And I truly want to thank you once again for taking the time and sharing your wonderful experiences with us. We are surely going to be cheering on, and we want to wish you the very best for the Olympics next year.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Now, I wanted to summarize and bring this event home now, which is, what I wanted you to take away is that Intel is truly reimagining the PC yet again, right? I've shown you about how we have done this in the past. We are once again bringing this whole industry together and reimagining it with Project Athena. The first steps of that reimagination is 10Gen, right? And you can see the breadth of devices that I've listed here that are really coming in during the holiday as well as in the early part of next year. You would see a lot more devices that are really going to come in and start representing these big shifts that we showed you today. Now, there's a lot more demos and there's a lot more devices that are in the experience zone that is just outside this hall. So after this session, you can surely go back and have an extended conversation. So with that, I wanted to thank you one more time for taking the time and spending your evening with us. And I look forward to seeing all of you once the session concludes. Thank you.
Thanks everyone. So that concludes the formalities. So if you'd like to come through and join us in the other room for drinks and canapes, and Santosh, Dino, and also our OEM partners will be available in there to chat with you and to answer any questions you have. Thanks.